Welcome to SoMo Garage, bringing you the latest racing news, sim racing talk, driver chat, and highlights from the SoMo Racing League with SoMo Racing League drivers. Sunday night at 9 p.m.
Take a look at your temps for me when you can.
Get ready for 1 hour of kicking the tires in the SoMo Garage. Strap in and hold on.
Stay low. Stay low.
Put on your boots. It's getting deep in here.
One more time, buddy. One more. We're going to be fine. All we got to do is just stay calm out there.
Something tells me their tank isn't always full.
What does that mean? Yeah, what does that mean? I don't know what that means. Can you just rivet it up into it? Or just get a drill and rivets and pop it up in there? Get the lower portion of the nose and tap it out. Get a hammer and tap out the lower portion of the nose. You're not going to be able to get that underneath there, I don't think. Guys, we got to hustle up here.
Get ready. The SoMo Garage starts right now.
Good evening and welcome to SoMo Garage. I'm Reilly along with Joe Mitchell and Paul Zotta. How's it going tonight, fellas?
Oh, I don't know. Not enjoying this cold weather, but other than that, not too bad.
Yeah, it's been pretty good. I feel bad for my kid. It was his birthday today, and of course he woke up sick, so he had to spend a day in the house here. Probably going to stay home tomorrow, but you know, we made the best of it. But that time of the year, so I guess you can expect that. And I'm still, I think, a week and a half now, man. I'm still not over mine, so hopefully it's not going to go back around. But, you know, move on, right?
Yeah, it's definitely that time of year. Everybody's starting to get sick, and everybody who's got kids knows what that's all about. Everybody comes home from school not feeling well and, and all that. So, yeah, it's definitely between now and about May, it seems like that's going to be going on and off.
I know.
But anyways, guys, kind of got through Martinsville in the Cup Series, and that was a big deal. You know, it was the start of the final round, or the second to final round in the Cup Series. So that was kind of a hectic race. A lot of hard battles going on and everything like that. How did it go for you guys?
I don't know. That was stressful. I was having issues with my brakes. Couldn't even really turn a lap in the beginning of practice. I think it took me 20 minutes to get it fixed. Luckily, I was able to. That's probably one of my worst tracks. I was just happy to finish. I didn't fully expect the run that I had there, but I don't know. I'll take it. It's a good race, I think, overall.
Yeah, I think it was a pretty decent race, and really for the track, you know, Martinsville, and for the amount of guys that we had out there, I think it was pretty good. I was happy with my car that night. You know, the last few weeks we've been talking about different things to try, and you know, trying to find speed and find out what the connection is on the track that's missing this year. And you know, probably the last week and a half or so, I started messing around with a bunch of different things, trying some out-of-the-box stuff that I've never really tried before. I've heard other guys do, but you know, it just wasn't for me. And, you know, I finished on the lead lap. I think I finished in a pretty decent position. Not really sure where, but I think I finished somewhere around like 8th or 9th maybe. But I was on the lead lap. I don't think I ever went a lap down. And the car really felt good, even on the long run. So I was happy with it. I'm hoping now, you know, that wasn't just a one-time thing, that, like, what I found is going to, you know, keep improving here.
Yeah, it was definitely a tough race. It was hard to pass. I know I ran up front, or close to the front, most of the race. I was running in the top 4 or 5, and I could see the leaders trying to, you know, like the second place car trying to get in front of the leader, and they were having a lot of trouble. And you know, it's like once you get a run underneath somebody, you got to be real careful not to wreck them or take yourself out in the process, because they'll, usually 9 times out of 10, the car you're passing will run you down real low. So you're not dealing with much racing room. But yeah, all in all, it was a pretty good race. I don't think for the track there was that many cautions. I think it turned out pretty well. I ended up getting a pit road speed penalty, and that got me back to about 11th, and I worked my way back up to, I think, 6th place or so. So not a terrible start to the round, but definitely not the results I was expecting.
Yeah, and next week is well, actually this week I should say coming is Texas. I was all confused about that, but yeah, should be pretty good. I mean, at least that track is a little bit more forgiving as far as like trying to pass and stuff. Because I don't know about you guys, there was a couple of times where like I tried to make some passes, man, but it was just almost impossible.
Yeah, yeah, it really was. It was definitely tough to. A couple of cars got a run on the outside, and where I've seen a couple of cars pass on the outside, but that was with fresh tires. But definitely hard to make passes.
Yeah, I think I tried the outside line a couple times. I was really surprised at how well it worked. I know not a lot of guys were able to do that, but there were a few, and definitely made it pretty interesting. That's for sure. It's just being a tough, tight track like that, it's hard to pass. I mean, you don't get many opportunities really, and I think I said in my interview after the race, I said that the track doesn't really suit my style at all. So it doesn't really reward you for being aggressive on corner entry. And I've kept making the same mistakes over and over again. It was, I don't know, pretty frustrating.
How about Tuesday night at Phoenix in the trucks? I mean, that was a crazy race right there, man. It wasn't really too bad. There was like I think 7 different leaders, 13 lead changes, and 4 cautions, and there was a bunch of guys that started. I think there was 21 guys that came out on the field, and that settled pretty much the top 4 who were moving on for the final race. The final race was supposed to be this Tuesday, but obviously with Halloween and all, Tuesday and Wednesday night got moved to next week. But I thought it was pretty cool, man, to see some of the guys that were still in it and battling it out, to get that top 4 spot.
125 laps that night, and Brian Neff comes out the winner. Definitely, that's good to see Brian get a win. That's good. I didn't look back, but is Brian in the chase or?
No, he wasn't here long enough. He came in probably a little bit more than halfway through the season, and it's kind of good though, that we also have it in place the way we have it. But he's just trying to learn and get ready for next season and be able to compete for all of that.
Yeah, me and him talk a lot after the races, and I think it was the week prior to that I told him I felt like he's kind of right there. I mean, he's shown speed. He's been up in the top 5 a good bit, and I said a lot of stuff that keeps falling out of his hands, I guess. It's a lot of circumstantial stuff, and I told him it was kind of a matter of time that all the pieces of the puzzle would be there, and I don't know. It was good to see him win, get that monkey off his back.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely good to get a win, man. It definitely increases your, it helps with your, momentum going forward, and it just always seems like every time you get a win, it just your mindset changes and you end up just running a lot better, So definitely doesn't hurt you to win, that's for sure.
Well, let's talk about the dreaded Wednesday night race at Phoenix in the Lazy Days Racing Xfinity Series, because that one was a little bit rougher. That one was 6 leaders, 13 lead changes, and 9 cautions, and we had a much smaller field too. I think only 14 drivers were on the track at one point, and I think you could just feel the tension in the air, knowing that was the last race before heading Homestead. And Chris Samard came out the winner on that one, which was an unexpected win because he wouldn't have made it into the Final Four without that win. And he came out of there leading 70 laps, too. So he definitely put something together at Phoenix and was able to pull it off, man. And that knocked you out, Aaron.
Yeah.
Not by much.
Right. He was in a must-win situation, and I didn't even think about Chris. I was racing Adam, and I think it was David Gainforth, and I just completely dismissed him because he was like 60-something points back, and I'm like, I didn't even think about him winning, So definitely, when you think about how the chase works, it's like, and until you're out, you're not out. So
yeah.
And that's a perfect scenario right there. But you know what? Chris did what he had to do, and he put together a good race for himself. He got himself into the Final Four, so you wish him the best of luck.
Yeah, because it was Keith Mayato won the first race of that round. Lupa Gonzalez won the second race of that round, and then that final race at Phoenix on Wednesday. I mean, there was only one spot? No, two spots open. So during the race, we were watching and broadcasting it, and we were like, well, if it ends this way, it'll be these four. Then a caution came out. It changed all around and everything, man. It was, it was good from our point of view because all the way till the end of the race, you really didn't know who was going to be that one to make it through. And, with that win, that definitely put him in a good spot,
I know that I was running really hard that night I knew a couple guys were in must-win situations, and I was just trying to be the upset guy. I don't know.
I wish you were.
Yeah, me too. It would have worked out a lot better than what actually happened to me. But I don't know. I think there was more cautions than I expected. I don't know. The car felt really on edge, like under braking going into one. I spun out twice. I still don't know exactly what happened there, but
right.
Yeah, it was hard racing for sure. I kind of figured Chris would be strong there. He usually runs pretty good at Phoenix. I know he's got a couple wins. I didn't expect it to be quite the way it was.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to just say it. The Xfinity car right now is garbage. They have a lot of work to do to make that car right. It doesn't even feel like a stock car. It feels like a Power Wheels car driving around on a racetrack and with worn out tires. So it's the same scenario as the Cup car was earlier in the year. You just cannot, if the setup is any kind of loose with that car, it's going to be such a handful to drive. And I'm pretty sure everybody spun out at least once during that race. Keith Miato, he spun on the going through the dog leg. I mean, that's how on edge those cars were. So definitely, they were definitely a handful. And just when you think you had control of the car, it would just break loose on you. So. We saw a lot of that going on that night. There was a lot of cautions. There was just a lot of switching around, and just a lot of weird things happening. For sure.
Hopefully they get a handle on it. I mean, if you remember back, like you said too, the Cup car was that way for a while, man. It was awful, and I think they brought it in a lot better now. It's at least it's a lot more fun to drive again, and it's definitely more stable than it was before. I think. There still should be a little bit more work done on, I don't know if it's the tire grip factor or something, that I think it's still just missing a little bit of something, but for the most part, it's not bad. And, the only thing is, and I'm not sure if it really matches up with NASCAR or not, is like the super speedways, Tally and Daytona, with that outside line not being able to really work. I don't know if that's something that needs, if it's right or does it need to be addressed, but it was nice when you can use that outside line too.
Well, that and one thing I have always been a firm believer on is the Xfinity car should handle as well as the Cup car if not better, because it has less horsepower. It's pretty much the same type of suspension setup. Uh, I believe they use the same tires. I'm not sure on that. I'm almost 100% sure they use the same exact tire. Um, it should really handle better because you're not putting down the power that the Cup cars putting down, and there's still a big difference between the two. So,
Mm-hmm.
I think it is. I do agree with you, Paul. I think it has come a long way, and I think it is better than it was at the beginning of the season. But they still have to. I think there's a pretty big swing they need to take on it. Hopefully over this winter season and get it right for 2018.
Can you believe you're saying the winter season already? We're already heading that way, man. Um, like I said, this Tuesday and Wednesday is not going to be any races at SoMo because of I almost said Thanksgiving, because of Halloween, and it'll all go back next week. But next week, the following week, Homestead for Tuesday's Portside Jaguar Truck Series, and Wednesday for the Lazy Days Racing Xfinity Series. And both of those are going to be at Homestead final races. So, here we go, man, into the Winter Series. And I think what's going to be put up this Wednesday, because Wednesday night's going to be the Mazda MX-5 Cup car road courses. This Wednesday we're going to put up a Daytona road afternoon and see if we get guys to come out and just, have some fun with them and kind of prepare for, a couple of weeks when the actual season starts and that race is up on the calendar.
Yeah, that'll definitely be fun. A little bit of change of pace over the winter time and, do some different stuff, kind of get away from the regular stock car routine and the normal oval tracks and, do some of that stuff. So that'll be cool.
And we've had some, I've had some suggestions come in that I'm, going to share with you guys through email anyway. But, like we run the Tuesday nights, we run the Truck Series all season. We run Wednesday nights the Xfinity all season and the Cup all season, which we're going to do again next season. We're going to bring in, what do you call it, the stages, and we're still going to keep the chases and all, but on some of the weeks that the trucks are off, because if you look at the actual schedule for the trucks, I mean, they're off for like a whole month at one point, early on in the season. And obviously, I don't know about you guys, but I don't want to take off a month. I'd like to be, racing. We're going to add in a few tracks like we did this time, but I think what we're going to do is in the middle of that, in the middle of that, we're going to have a kind of like a mini season, you know what I mean? Like a couple of race mini season, and in something totally different, maybe we'll choose something, but maybe do like a 2 or 3 week race thing, and just those 2-3 weeks have a mini season and like a mini series in there while the trucks are off of those couple of weeks, instead of just putting all these tracks in for the trucks, so that's something that we're going to discuss and see what you think about that.
Yeah, that'd be cool, for sure. But that's all stuff we can talk about and put together and put our minds together and come up with something for sure. So guys, I want to go over in the truck series, you have Lupe Gonzalez, Len McNeese, Adam Baker, and Travis Wall. Is that right for the top 4?
Right, those are the 4 that'll be in the championship 4 in next week.
So I'm trying to figure out how Len. I don't really follow Tuesday night that well, so excuse me. But Len McNeese, he's currently in second place. He's just got a. Did he currently get did he get a win recently?
Yeah, he got a win to get him into the chase originally, I believe, and then he was in a must-win situation when we were coming from the round of 12 to the round of 8, because he went on vacation and he missed a race or 2 and was way back behind in points. And I think it was at Talladega, if I remember 100% right, and he got himself in that right spot, man, and got the win towards the end of that race, and that moved him on. And he just happened to be in the right place at the right time, So here he just managed to be consistent, hang on to some points. And some of the guys that were around him in points didn't finish as well as he did, and he was the next one in line to go on in.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, that's awesome. That's gonna be cool to see those four drivers go to Homestead. And in the Xfinity series, we got Adam Baker, Lupe Gonzalez, Keith Miato, Chris Samard. Um,
And
that's
that's
it.
it. Yep, those are the four.
Yep. That's so.
And the way,
Who do you have your money on?
well,
in that series?
and the way it's going to work is this: in all three series, at the final race, laps led's not going to count. Leading a lap for points is not going to count. It's going to be the driver who finishes first. So, if they're running, 5th, 6th, 9th, and 10th, that 5th place driver, when he crosses the checker flag, he's the champion. I know it's kind of, it's kind of left fieldish, but I think it's good because going into it, all four drivers are even. Whoever gets the best finish. You know what I mean?
I like that. I mean, I think really that's how it should be. Is there really shouldn't be any bonus points. It should be like all performance-based stuff. You should have to outrun the other guys. You
Yeah.
don't get any bonus points.
And that'll get rid of guys staying out to lead a lap to get that extra bonus point. You know what I mean? And it's just basically, look, I'm racing Joe and I'm racing Aaron. I got to get to the line first, and I'm going to keep an eye on where you guys are, and I'm going to try to get myself into that position so I can get across the line first. And I like that idea, and when we first came up with it, and I think it's going to be really good. I think it's definitely going to change the dynamics of the race for sure, because if you run too hard in the beginning and you hurt yourself or wreck your car, wreck your truck, you're done. You know what I mean? Your night is over. So you're going to have to be aggressive with a lot of patience, which is going to be really tough, But I think it's going to come down to that final stage of the race. You got to get yourself into that right position, man, on that last pit stop or something, and, hope that you've got the rubber underneath you to get you to the front.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I don't know. If it was last season, I would say I'd put my money on Lupe, but he's been struggling, it seems. He's had a lot of bad luck. I think the truck series may come down to Travis or Adam, just from a speed factor. Those guys have a ton of wins in the trucks.
Yeah.
They've been up front.
I agree there, yep.
And Wednesday, I have to go with Keith. I don't know what it is about him and those cars, but I mean, he's put a pretty big whooping on the field several times. So I don't know. I think he's the guy to beat for sure.
Well, one thing I noticed about Keith, he hasn't won in 2 weeks. So I definitely now think he might be human. I was starting to think he was an alien there for a while. But yeah, I just look back and I'm like, oh wow, he hasn't won in the Cup Series or the Xfinity Series in a couple weeks. But that could change at any moment, and we all know Keith runs good. So yeah, you would have to expect Keith to definitely be a factor going to Homestead.
Absolutely. And with him, he seems to be good in the long run if he can stay out of trouble, and that's what's going to be the key factor next Tuesday and Wednesday for sure. Because like I said, to finish in front of somebody else, you got to keep your car or your truck somewhat together. And a couple of mistakes, hitting the wall, and maybe getting caught up in somebody spinning out and getting a little bit of nose damage or some right front fender damage. I mean, that could cost you the championship right there, man. So it's going to be a lot of pressure. I'm glad I'm not under that pressure, but it's definitely going to be a lot of pressure for each driver out there to try and hold it together.
So in the Cup Series, Seth Hatchell locks himself into Homestead so far, so he's a definite contender for Homestead. Keith Miato runs second, Joe's in third, Adam fourth, Kurt Davidson in fifth, me currently sixth, Shane Paula seventh, and Lupe in eighth. So bunch of guys, Lupe, Shane, Kurt, all good fast drivers could definitely, sneak in there and take a spot from some of those guys more towards the front. We got Texas and Phoenix coming up, so definitely some more, a lot more racing to do before we get to Homestead. So it's going to be interesting to see how all that works out. Joe was saying, Lupe's been having some bad luck. His bad luck's got to change now, especially in that series. He's 17 points out of the from the leader right now. He's definitely got to be consistent the next 2 weeks, or he's going to be on the outside looking in.
Yeah, and he is the current champion from last season from the Lazy Days Racing Cup Series. So, and he did have the most wins last season. But him, I believe, like us, he's fallen into a little bit of bad luck. He's had a couple of races where he's got some DNFs, and some of it is just being in the wrong place, the wrong time. But I think he was struggling too, like some of us were, man, with the change of the car, because he definitely wasn't running the same way he was running last year. But if you look, though, he's still finding himself consistently, putting himself in that position. And with Texas and Phoenix coming up, he's another one that can save those tires and everything. So he might pull out an upset and grab a win, next week or the week after and lock himself in. What's going to be tough is if a non-chase driver grabs a win, you know what I mean? Because then it's still on points going into Phoenix, man, and you know how that goes.
Yep, and that very well could happen. I mean, there's a lot of drivers, outside of the top 8 right now that are, that could definitely, steal that win. So that's going to be interesting to see going forward how that plays out, because that could, put everything, the whole emphasis on Phoenix, and hopefully the Phoenix race goes a little bit better than the Xfinity Phoenix race went. I'm thinking it will, because just naturally those Cup cars seem to handle a lot better at Phoenix anyways. But
yeah, and I noticed
take away the tension.
Excuse me. I noticed the guys in the Cup cars, especially since we got into the last stage and this stage of the chase, guys seem to be a little bit more, I want to not really say patient, but more aware of their surroundings. And if you notice, even on the starts, guys are just kind of plotting instead of taking. And towards the end, obviously the plotting goes away, the taking comes up, but it just seems like guys were driving a lot more smarter, what it appears like anyway, because just by the amount of cautions, I should say by the lack of the amount of cautions that we've been having in the races, just shows you, guys are still racing hard, but there's just something that's a little bit different, whether it's, given that little inch or not, something's definitely changed. And I think it's because guys are thinking, like, I got to be around if I want to be in,
I think in the Cup Series in particular, a lot of guys are just, it seems like they're taking what they got and running with it, not trying to really push the envelope too much. I feel like quite a few guys have gone the more conservative route for the chase and everything, and really just trying to be there at the end and focus on points and stuff. I know I've attempted to do it. It goes against everything in me because I just want to go and win, but you got to be there at the end or you're going to take a big loss in points.
Yeah, you got to be there at the end, and you got to be in a good position. So, or at least have yourself in a position where you can either challenge for a win or at least finish in the top 3 or 5. At the end of the race. So there's a lot of pressure on these chase drivers going into these last few races.
Oh yeah,
you can feel it. You just being in these races and racing around these guys, you could just feel how hard they're running you, and you got to kind of, control. You got to have a lot of self-control within yourself too, to know what they're trying to do, and then still be able to control what you're doing basically and not make a mistake to, you know, put yourself out of the race, or even take another chase driver out of the race, because nobody wants to take another chase driver out of the race.
You don't want to be that Danny
You
Hamlin.
don't want to be that guy. You don't want to be that Denny Hamlin. Exactly. So, you know, it's a lot of stress. It's a lot of pressure. You know, just to perform, and you know, it's at this level. So you can just imagine what the Cup guys are going through on, you know, the NASCAR level. So
forget it.
It's got to be crazy to even imagine that.
But one thing I got to go ahead, Joe.
Talking about it. So I'm just getting stressed out talking about it.
But one thing I got to say is, though, I think it was definitely a good season. We've had a lot of guys that have been repeat drivers, you know, for a season or two. A couple guys been around from way back. So good to see guys coming back. It's definitely good to see how guys learn how to drive around each other and, you know, make the racing even better. And even with the new guys that came in on Tuesday nights, we got a bunch of new guys, and a bunch of these guys are definitely going to be a lot of fun to have in, you know, whichever series they want to run next season, whether they choose to run all three or run one or run two. But to be able to open the door to some of these guys up to the Xfinity and Cup Series, got a lot of guys out there that have joined, that have, you know, good numbers. And if you go back and you look at some of their stats and everything, you know, through their iRacing career, I mean, some of these guys are definitely going to be competition next season. I think it's just going to get harder as it goes to get a win, man.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm just looking at the top 8 in the Cup Series right now, and you know, I'm sitting back there in 6th place right now, and I'm looking at everybody in front of me saying, I don't know how the heck I'm going to beat these guys next 2 races. So, man, there's a lot of tough competition out here right now.
Absolutely, man. But it's a lot of fun. I'm glad that we have it. I'm glad that it's going good, and you know, hopefully, like, I'm not looking to start next season already, but I'm hoping that through the Winter Series, you know, we pick up a few more guys and you know, pick up some more good guys and get some fields out there again at the start. You know, we got the full Daytona 500s. I think we got the 150 and I think the 300 or in the Xfinity. So, you know, it's definitely going to be a whole different ball game. And hopefully through the Winter Series, man, people like myself that were struggling with some of the settings and some of the stuff that's changed, you know, get a grip on it. But I'm definitely looking forward to it. Definitely looking forward to this Winter Series, man, just to relax. You know what I mean? Have some fun, race something different.
Yeah, I think it's going to be, I don't know, a good thing for all of us. I think from the beginning of this season to now, just looking back on everything and kind of reflecting on all that's happened, we kind of need some laid back time. So I'm kind of looking forward to it. I can wait for the Daytona 500. My butt's getting numb thinking about it, but that's a tough race, man. I don't know. I give those guys a lot of credit that run full-length races and, like, race car drivers in general. That definitely takes a toll on you.
That's a fun race, though. I don't feel like it really takes, especially our races, because we don't really have that many cautions to date so far, but I feel like the laps click by pretty well, you know, pretty fast, and I don't really feel like we're there for the amount of time we are there, you know, if that makes sense. It seems like it just goes by pretty quick.
Yeah, in the beginning, towards about halfway, like when you get to that little bit past the quarter to halfway mark, you kind of start feeling it. But then it seems like once you get past the halfway and you start watching the laps closing down and you know, and like, you know, okay, this is it. This is where it all counts. You kind of forget that whole first half of the race and you're in that moment, you know what I mean? And it's just, you know, you just come alive again, man. You're like, all right, you know, and that's when you start kind of sitting up. Like I noticed I'll start sitting up a little bit higher. I'll start, you know, leaning in a little bit, grabbing the wheel and you know, trying to focus a little bit more. It's tough when you're driving around And you know, what was the beginning of this season too? I mean, we were too wide, you know, for I don't know how many rows deep. You couldn't even breathe in between, man. Like it was hold your breath and you know just drive, man.
Yeah, I think once you get inside of the like last 40 or 50 laps, it's completely different. I feel like the first 3 quarters of the race is really mentally exhausting. It's not so much physical. I mean, it's not a really crazy track, but just from a mental standpoint, to try to put yourself in the right position and make sure that you're going to be in one of those groups that could be there at the end challenging for a win. It's tough. You're working through the whole race up to that point. And I think like adrenaline takes over that last section of the race and you're not even worried about it anymore.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I know what you're saying, Paul. Like the first half of the race, you get almost to halfway, and it's like you kind of feel you almost kind of get sleepy a little bit because you kind of get in a rhythm and you're kind of running around and just not really. There's not too much intensity going on, and you got that what do you call it? That like the 2:30 feeling or whatever they call it, where it's
Yeah.
like almost the end of the day and you're really tired feeling. But yeah, it's. I love. I think the 500. What I love the most about that is the last 40 or 50 laps because like you said, you really come alive and you start processing. All right, this is what I need to do to get myself in this position to be at contention for the end of the race, and that's a lot of fun, man. I really enjoy looking forward to that race over the winter series, thinking about it. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So let's talk about the Martinsville race today, NASCAR race. You guys both saw it, right?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, lot of hard racing going on towards the end of the race. It seemed like the intensity level was pretty high from about the midpoint of the race all the way to the end. Uh, we saw um, Denny Hamlin get into Chase Elliott about halfway down the straightaway and literally pushed him right in the corner and basically dumped him. And on that second to final restart, and that was, in my opinion, I mean that was completely uncalled for. Denny Hamlin had no good excuse on why he did it. He wasn't going to he wasn't going to say that he wrecked him intentionally, but it's pretty obvious that he did. Um, you know, I get he's racing, he's trying to win a race. I get it, but it's just there's hard racing, and then there's that next level where you just get really desperate, and I feel like that's exactly what Denny Hamlin did.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like the move that he did, but um, I will say that I don't think he meant to completely take him out, but he did. Like he had every intention of hitting him, it, to some degree, and he went too far with it. I'm sure he didn't mean to just flat take him out, but that's what happened. And I don't like it. I was kind of rooting for Chase there. I mean, he's switching car numbers next year, and I know it means a lot to him to try to get a win in the 24. And he's been so close so many times. I don't know. I just kind of feel for the kid because I know it means a lot to him. It'd be really cool to see it happen.
Yeah. I'm definitely a Chase Elliott fan. I think I was, of course, a Dale Jr. fan, but Dale Jr.'s going away, and I think Chase Elliott's going to be he's going to be the spotlight in the Hendrick camp. I really do feel that, and he's a heck of a racer already, and he's only a couple of years into this now, and it's really going to be fun to see him. And I believe he's going back to the 9 next year.
Yeah.
So that's going to be cool to see that. I don't think the 24 fits him very well, and I think he's going to be better off. He's going to have his number. He's going to be or his dad's number, I guess, right? So that's going to be pretty cool, for sure. I think he's been knocking on the door of a win for a while now, and he's had I don't know how many 6 or 7 second place finishes. So it's gonna be really cool to see that finally come together for him when it does. So as far as the rest of the race, I just feel like there was you could see there was a lot of intensity going on. There was a lot of guys shoving each other, through the center of the corners and all that. It was definitely an action-packed race. I mean, normally some of these NASCAR races, I kind of I kind of get tired about halfway through it, but I stayed awake the whole entire race, especially the midpoint on.
That's
And
funny.
yeah, it was definitely good, from about lap 250 to 500. I mean, I was like, wow, this is like, I don't want to take my eyes off of it because there's actually a lot of good racing going on all over the racetrack. It wasn't just up front.
Yeah, and I was telling you guys before, I didn't know that Jimmy Johnson had to go to the back for, changing tires on the car. I know they said he wheel hopped it, he spun, and I guess he tapped the wall or something. So they opted to change tires on there after the qualifying session, and I didn't realize. I guess I forgot that that's an infraction in NASCAR.
Yeah, yeah, you're not supposed to touch the car after qualifying. So, luckily, he didn't wreck the car. I think he might have just brushed the wall a little bit, but they really got lucky on that, and were just able to start in the rear with their primary car.
That was a crazy race, though. I know what you mean. Usually, like mile and a half tracks and stuff, I will end up falling asleep halfway through the race. I don't know why. But this one, I don't know. It was different. I think I sent you an email about it saying that I kind of thought it was going to be kind of crazy. The guys were going to be a little more aggressive. Um, and I didn't think it was going to end up quite like it did. And also there's a huge wreck at the very end. That never happens, where you see 30 guys stopped on the front stretch. I don't know. It was a crazy race. It was interesting. It was fun to watch. Usually they're not that exciting, so it was kind of good to see that.
I know you.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Aaron.
No, go ahead, or Paul, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I know you got to be happy with the winner tonight, Joe, and I know Tim Giles got to be happy with the winner, man, because I was surprised. I knew he was pretty strong, but we seen him get shuffled around a little bit, and then Truex, got closed up in there too, man. It kind of played out the way most people thought it was really going to play out, but it didn't look that way. A little bit further back from the ending.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to complain about him winning the race. I wasn't really going to bring it up. I get crap every time for it, so. But yeah, he was struggling at the end. Like the whole last stage, he was complaining, said the car felt like crap, and it was just all over the place when he was close to someone. And I think that kind of proves it too, of what we were talking about earlier, of just being in the right place at the right time and trying to keep your nose clean so that you can be there at the end. I really think that had a lot to do with it. He wasn't really beating on anybody like the other guys who were up front were.
I think it's definitely going to be interesting going into Homestead with these guys, because you got, of course, Kyle Busch is locked in now, and you got Martin Truex, which is, it's not a for sure bet, but pretty sure he'll probably go to Homestead too. He's got a pretty good points. He's got a pretty good points lead up to that. I think he's like 50 or 60 points. To the good right now, and he always runs good on mile and a half. So he'll probably do really well at Texas. Granted something doesn't happen, but he ends up coming out second today, which I thought was pretty impressive because Martin Truex, everybody knows, is not a short track racer. Yes, he probably did get a little lucky with the way these restarts went and all that, but he didn't have all that bad of a car today. I feel like he ran, in the top 5, top 8 most of the race. So those guys really, really are putting together, a heck of a season. And I tell you what, he's going to be hard to beat come Homestead.
Yeah, I think too. I mean, he has the 60-point cushion right now. Heading into a mile-and-a-half track, I think it, they'd have to have some major catastrophic issues for him to not make it to the round of four. Um, I'd say he's, other than Kyle winning, he's in the best seat to get there. I do think that get when they get to Homestead, it's going to be tough. I mean, Truex has shown great speed all year, and I mean, even Kyle Larson, I know he really likes that track, and he's been fast too. So, I mean, Kyle could end up winning that race at the end of the season, which I'm sure he'd be disappointed about, being not in the chase now,
Right.
knowing that if he would have gotten there, that he would have won it. But uh, I don't know. It's going to be interesting for sure.
And then you have Jimmy Johnson, which statistically, this is looking like his probably one of his worst seasons, possibly in his career, or pretty close to it, in the most recent future, anyways. And they just did not run that well today. I mean, they looked like they were going to start coming around. They were in the top 10, and then all of a sudden it's like bam, it was like a light switch, and it started getting dark out, and they went the other way. And that's a team right there that I'm wondering if they don't perform at Texas or Phoenix and get a win. I don't know. I'm starting to wonder if the 48 is going to make it to top four at Homestead.
It's kind of it kind of sucks to talk about it because you think of all the accomplishments in years past, and winning the championship last year and getting seven, and Texas is a really good track for them. I just don't know if their cars just don't have it right now. They don't have the same speed. Um, that's It's kind of hard to watch. I mean, used to seeing him up front leading laps at Martinsville, and he struggled to even get to the top 10. So it's definitely pretty surprising for sure. And it's going to be interesting, though, because, like I said, Texas is a good track for him. Kevin Harvick and Phoenix go together pretty well, so you never know what could happen here.
And you wonder, it's definitely not the organization, because everybody saw the speed that Chase Elliott was running today, and being a Hendrick car and all that, and you know, you wonder if it's something within the team that's just not clicking. Is it Jimmy Johnson not, something all of a sudden not clicking between him and Chad Knaus, or are they just trying different things just way outside of the box to see if it's going to work? I would hope not, being this is the time of the year where everything, you got to have all your ducks in a row, and it's not time to experiment anymore. So it's just kind of strange to see them run so bad. I shouldn't say so bad. I mean, they could have run worse than they did, but for Jimmy Johnson at Martinsville, he ran pretty bad today. So and you see the speed that some of the other Hendrick cars have. So kind of strange. I wonder if they're just putting too much pressure on themselves to perform, and they're just making mistakes.
And I kind of think, I mean, Jimmy and Chase have kind of led the Hendrick camp all year. I feel like Chase he's had more speed than Jimmy all season long. It's kind of crazy, but I think that Chase being so young, I think he's, I don't know the best way to put it. He's too young to know any better, kind of. So I don't, and I know he's a professional driver, and that's not what I mean really, is that you look through like all the changes of all the cars in years past, and it always seems like the new guys coming up seem to do pretty well or pretty decent, and then veterans struggle with it as things change and progress. I think that's kind of what we're seeing, is that the guys that have been around for so long, over a decade, have seen so many changes in cars that they have to change their driving styles when the cars change, and the young guys coming up are just happy gung ho to get the opportunity, so they just go and get after it. That's what I mean by he's too young to know any better. Because you see it with Ryan Blaney too. So I don't know.
No, I think you're absolutely right, and you know, and that's not necessarily a bad thing at all. I mean, the cars have changed so much and evolved so much over the years. To see these newer guys come in and just adapt so quickly to these cars, you know, it's almost like an unfair advantage, but you know, it's not really, but you know, it's just it almost seems that way because you're right. And it's just like us in iRacing. Every time a build change, you know, there's a change in, you know, a big build, and a car changes drastically. We have to learn how to drive them all over again. And you know, some of these guys come in fresh, and bam, you know, they pick it up right away, and everybody else is like, "Hey, you know, what's going on here?" So, it's probably experience is wonderful and it's great, but it's not always, you know, what you need to excel in this type of sport. So, um, yeah, it's going to be interesting, definitely going forward to see all that.
You know,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, you know what I would like to see? I would like to see them get together, like Mark Martin, Dale Jarrett, and you know, a couple of guys from around their time, the Leban, you know, one or two of the Lebantis or something. Give them a couple of cars, let them run some laps out on one of the tracks, and hear what they have to say from how the car changed and how the car feels from, you know, when they were out there in, I want to say real cars, you know, real stock cars, to these kind of aerodynamic kind of I don't know, monsters, and you know, just see if they're able to even get a grip on them, or if it's, you know, that far out of the realm.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be interesting to see. You know what I was thinking about the other day? You remember the IROC or the International Race of Champions that they did?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
used to love that stuff.
I did too. I loved it, and I remember, you know, watching it as a kid growing up, and you know, all those guys at Daytona and stuff like that. You'd have all these different drivers from different series and different motorsports getting together and running those races. That was so much fun to see that,
Mm-hmm.
and just see different driving styles come together and, you know, outperform, you know, others, and that was really cool. I guess that made me think of that when you were talking about it just now. Um, but guys, let's talk about Richard Petty Motorsports real quick. Um, they signed Darrell Wallace Jr. for 2018. Um, it's definitely I think it's definitely a good move for them. Darrell Wallace Jr. Is definitely going to be one of those drivers that's going to be up and coming in the Cup Series. I think he has the potential to run really well. You know, you've seen it. Even just, you know, where he's racing right now, he's a good racer. He's got his head on his shoulders. He's keeps himself, you know, pretty composed. So that's going to be a lot of fun to see going forward.
And I think that kind of goes hand in hand with the youth versus experience argument we were just having. Is like when Eric Almirola was out with his injury, Bubba came in and he ran a lot better than Eric had all year. And, you know, he was up in the top 10, and I really think it's going to be a nice addition coming into next season to see another young guy. And I know there's a couple other ones coming up too, and I think next year is going to be really exciting with all the young guys coming up.
Yeah, I believe so. I definitely I definitely like all this new you know, all these new guys coming in. I think there's a lot of good talent right now, and I don't know where these guys are coming from, man. But it just seems like, you know, there's just so much talent coming into the sport right now. We see a lot of guys starting to go away. You know, Matt Kenseth, you know, unsure about his future. Don't even know if he's going to race next year. You know, Carl Edwards goes away. Dale Jr. goes away. A lot of these guys just getting out of it, retiring, and, you know, moving on. So these guys are going to be the future of this sport. So it's really, really cool to see these guys, because I really feel like, you know, the talent that's here right now is really, really going to probably turn NASCAR around, and it's going to make the sport a lot better and more interesting, I think, going forward.
Yeah. And, the one thing real quick, Petty getting Bubba Wallace signed on full time. I think that's good. I like Bubba Wallace. I think he's a talented guy. I think, Petty said if he can just rein him in a little bit on some of his driving styles, he thinks that they could build off it, which will be good. But I'm just so tired of hearing the first African American, the first black driver. I like what I think Adam, I don't know if it was one of the Petties that interviewed and said, dude, we don't care what color a person is. He can drive. He's a race car driver. He can drive. We put him in the car. We were happy with his results when he stepped in for Amarola, and we want him in the car. He's a good driver. And it's like, why does everybody always got to go to that? Why can't we just say, he's on with Richard Petty Motorsports, man? But, that's just a little bug that was chewing at me.
Yeah. Well, it just seems like no matter where you are, what kind of sport you're in, somebody always has to throw that in there. I don't know if they just do it for statistic reasons or whatever, but I'm with you. I don't. If the guy can drive, who cares if he's blue? I mean, it doesn't matter. He's in the position he's in because he's a good race car driver. Period.
Yeah, and I think too, I don't like it for the simple fact that when people say it, they're completely have like no disregard for the past history of the sport. And like Wendell Scott was the African American that kind of like paved the way for those guys in NASCAR that went through all the crap. And I don't really like hearing about all that now. Like NASCAR has the Drive for Diversity program and all that stuff, and it's great. Trying to get other ethnic groups involved, but I don't know. I wish people would look back into the history of it more before saying some of the stuff that they say.
Yeah, I agree completely. All right, Paul. Well, we got a pretty easy week coming up here. I guess the only race we got going on is Thursday night this week.
Yeah, and Thursday night on PBR Broadcasting, our league, SoMo Racing League, will be on, and that'll be at Texas. Tuesday and Wednesday, we're going to be off this week, obviously, because of Thanksgiving. Boy, I got Thanksgiving on my mind, I think, because I'm hungry. But for Halloween, so we just figured, both nights take them off, and we'll just do both Homestead races the same week. But tomorrow night, GAC Racing League is going to be on SR Broadcasting right here on this channel at 8:45 p.m. East. They got the 360 dirt sprint cars going on. I'm happy to say I'm going to be testing a brand new overlay that I just put together in the last two and a half days. The one that you're watching right now on the replay is one that I just put together this week. Was the first one that I messed with, from complete scratch on up. Now that I kind of got the hang of it, I came up with some ideas, and I really put together something that I've kind of watched a little bit of dirt racing and some broadcasts from the dirt side of things, and be happy to bring that out tomorrow night. So if you're around tomorrow night and anybody wants to tune in, just come back here, SR Broadcasting, 8:45 p.m. East. GAC will be on with the 360 sprint cars, and then Thursday night will be PBR Broadcasting doing SoMo Racing League, Lazy Days Racing Cup Series at Texas, and then next Sunday we'll be back here at the garage.
All right, guys, sounds good. Well, as always, it's a pleasure to do this with you guys, and we hope you all have a great night.
Good night, everyone.